Hello, welcome back to Welcome Home Humanity. A little bit more on doctoring and the sort of doctoring I try to do. It's changing face, and what we need to do to make sure that humanity and common sense doesn't get squeezed out of what we're doing. Again, I will say that our problem is time, but it's something that we can change, that we need to invest more time in our consultations. We need to have a system that allows this. It's so important that if we find, say, somebody has high blood pressure, as well as doing our tests and our examination, we look at people's lifestyle, work out if their body is under pressure. Is there basically, have they got an overdose of fight or flight in their body? Has that been conditioned into them from an early age? Is there something that's happening now that needs to change? So therefore, the first thing we must do is consider that we are going to help that person with a change in their life, their job, relationship, their nutrition, their food, their exercise, or whatever. And that needs to come from a good relationship you have with somebody, which usually involves a lot of listening. It can't be done under an hour. It certainly can't be done in 6 minutes, and all you can do in 6 minutes is act as if you are the authority and maybe prescribe medication. Medication is needed, obviously, as a rescue, particularly if somebody has a very high blood pressure. Medication is still needed, and we need to make sure that we know when that happens. But for most people who are going to start on long-term medication, unless we're faced with a medical emergency at the time, needs a lot of thought, a lot of discussion, at least an hour, as we discuss the pros and cons. For instance, it may well be that if somebody is started on blood pressure medication or cholesterol-lowering drug, that their chances of us preventing a serious episode, either from the heart or stroke or whatever, in the next year or so, it may well be that we're going to halve the incidence, the likelihood of this person having a problem. However, that may well be that we're reducing their chances from being 2 in 100, for instance, to being 1 in 100. And we have to weigh that up, against the possibility, in fact probability, that this medication will have other effects on them, maybe their cognition, maybe on their sex life, maybe on their bodies, and may make them achy or whatever, may stop them doing exercise, may get them into trouble at work because they're forgetful. So at least an hour, very important. And I would suggest that people phone their doctors and book in an hour with them. In New Zealand, that will mean that they have to pay a certain amount of money. Maybe, say it's $200 or $250 or so. That's the same price as a tyre and a half on a small car, and maybe one tyre on a bigger car. And if it's about starting on medication, then this is not a great expense. And I would say, if the person can afford it, this is hugely important. What happened in that consultation? Well, in that consultation, we should be finding out about the pressures on this person, whether stress is playing a major factor, whether diet is playing a major factor, lack of exercise, whether there's stress in relationships, and whether there's bullying, whatever. So that's going to take a bit of time as well, even before we then look at the medication and have an in-depth discussion about the pros and cons of the medication over a long period of time, and whether this medication is going to lead into more medication, and then we're going to find ourselves in a situation down the line where we have 4 or 5 medications all interreacting. We should be looking at the updated websites, the good ones like the Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, places like that. We can look at them together. I certainly value that because they're updating those all the time, and I get educated as well. But I can sort of look at that stuff with some understanding of what's happened before and where the trends are going. And I think it's important also for all prescribing, including vaccination. We need to spend all this time with parents, certainly those ones who are concerned about vaccination, to go through all the literature and to try and make some sense of the statistics. And it's incredibly complicated when it comes to statistics, because often they're talking about a community effect rather than an individual effect, and we have to make sure that people know that. And I think only so we should be giving. This is the only way to fully inform people to go through this process, so that people are taking responsibility for themselves, but also for their families. This is what good medicine is about. It's not about dogma. It's also, as far as I'm concerned, when I try to practice this medicine, I find it very satisfying for me, and rewarding as far as how I'm trying to help somebody in their own lives. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm finding that is far more rewarding than just going straight to the prescription pad, straight to the computer, and typing in something. We need the technology to inform us like never before. We've got at our fingertips this wonderful encyclopedia that we could never imagine before. We should be using it, but we've got to spend more time with people, and we have to create a system where that works. And if there are doctors who say, hey, we can't, we're overworked. No, we have a situation where we have a certain degree of power in this in the system to say this is the way we need to reorganize our practices, reorganize how we do things, and for the good of the people, but actually for our good as well, because there's no point in trying to be the eternal rescuer, taking that responsibility on ourselves when we should be letting people, we should be empowering people to take responsibility themselves. And we all know this, and it's time that we all changed, and therefore we're not only bringing back humanity into primary care, medicine, whatever, but we're also bringing a heck of a lot of common sense to the picture. Next time I'm going to be talking about natural health, and where the good things about that and some of the not so good things about how it's practiced, in my view anyway, to open up discussion with you guys. So let's do that, and I'm very honoured that you're with me, and please respond by commenting and giving me feedback, and so we're in this together. Thanks a lot. See you later. Bye.